Hey, and your money today, not so good. Dow's still down. All kinds of emergency measures by the Fed. Interest rates are at zero. Now up to potentially $2 trillion is going to be made available to the Fed to make open market purchases, to buy bonds, treasuries, government paper, corporate paper, all things to keep the wheels of the economy rolling. I wonder what the government is going to do for people who work in the gig economy. These are people that are like one-man shows, sole proprietorships, Uber drivers, bartenders, waitresses, all these people that do, hospitality and per diem. Really hard to figure out how the government can help them, and I hope we're going to see that. But government also talking about $300 billion in loans and loan guarantees for small businesses. I know of a couple of businesses who have made applications already. I know a lot of businesses who are working through them, and they say the paperwork pile is enormous and maybe even untenable for some smaller companies who don't have enough time and resources with all the people working from home. So it's great for the government to get the money allocated. Let's hope they can get it into the hands of small businesses, because then everyone will feel a lot calmer, because if small businesses are getting loans that they can access easily and get some liquidity, then they can keep people employed, let people work from home because the government's helping them and getting them through it, okay? Very important stuff there. We'll keep you posted on all that as we finish up the hour today. Joining me right now is Alex Epstein. Alex Epstein is a New York Times bestselling author and founder of the Center of Industrial Progress, and his latest book, The Moral Case for Fossil Fuels, just came out. And the topic we want to talk about today is imagine fighting the coronavirus if we actually had this Green New Deal. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so if you're looking at the fight against coronavirus today, you can think of it as a very high energy fight in a very literal sense. Like, we're trying to ramp up production in our factories. We're trying to rapidly transport goods from where they are to where they're needed. And we're talking about powering ventilators where life is at stake. And yet what the Green New Deal is saying is we should abolish fossil fuels and nuclear, which are our sources of reliable energy, and we should be forced to use almost 90% solar and wind. Now, there's nowhere in the world that even uses 25% solar and wind because they're unreliable energy. So if we were forced to rely on this, we would have blackouts all over the place. Last year, Australia had a blackout because they were overly reliant on solar in a certain place, and they had an unexpected cloud, and the power was out for 9 hours. Imagine that happening when your mother's on a ventilator.
Wow. So a lot of the things you're talking about, the title sounds a little tricky. The moral cause for the Green New Deal, for the fossil fuels. We actually need these fossil fuels, no matter how these green crazies want to slice it. And right now, imagine if in the middle of all of this, on top of it, we had to deal with a cloud or the weather. This is kind of, I would say, from my perspective, killing the idea of getting a 90% green, because what would happen right now in an emergency?
Yeah, exactly. We wouldn't have reliable power. And we're actually seeing with this universal shutdown of life, that's actually a lot what life would be like under a Green New Deal. Because if your energy is expensive and it's unreliable, then all these jobs that people have that are productive today, they wouldn't exist. America wouldn't be very productive. All the jobs would be shipped overseas because other people would have lower cost energy. And we'd have the kind of mass impoverishment we have now, but it would be indefinite.
And being that there would be no planes, no trains, only electric automobiles, we'd probably be spending a lot more time at home because we'd have no way to get to places other than walking or horses, I guess, back to the old days. So this is almost showing that this whole ideology of the Green New Deal is like way too whacked out for humanity right now, because this is a perfect example. You want to be like that again?
Right. It's a very primitive type of thing. They're not at all valuing having machine power that's low cost and reliable. And you mentioned we'd be staying at home, but really what we'd be doing is we'd be back to all working on farms, because we don't have machines to do our work for us. We still need to eat. We still need to protect ourselves from the elements, but it needs to be manual labor. And if you want to know what a Green New Deal is like, look at a place like North Korea. I mean, they're trying to rely on renewables. That's a place that has very little machine power, and it's true of the rest of the poor world. So most of the poor world, if you look at China, India, they're using a lot more fossil fuels to get a more advanced way of life, and they're not going to stop. So the Green New Deal is just going to make us more primitive, and it doesn't do anything to lower global emissions.
Got it. All right. Well, Alex, thank you very much. We got to have you back and talk about it more. New York Times best-selling author Alex Epstein, thank you very much. Appreciate it. And you got to go check out his new book, The Moral Case for Fossil Fuels. Really interesting read on why we're always going to need oil, at least for the foreseeable future. We're going to take a quick break. Liquid Lunch is going to come back at you in a little bit, but if you're sitting home and you're worried about how you're going to eat your next meal, and you can still order from your local restaurant, they all deliver. And thanks to my buddy Frankie and our friends over at Ciro's and Salvatore and Lloyd's, our studio right here in Staten Island, New York, is well fortified with pizzas today. Thank you, Frankie. Thank you, Ciro's, Salvatore and Lloyd's. And thank you for being there throughout this hour. We're going to take a quick break and come back and wrap up this last edition of Liquid Lunch just after this.